Welcome to the I Am One podcast, where we chat with Postpartum Support International volunteers to discuss why and how exactly they're supporting the mental health of new families. I'm your host, Danny Giddens. I'm a perinatal mental health certified advocate, a support group leader in my community, and I'm one staff member of the Climb Out of the Darkness program here at PSI. Hearing one person's story on a podcast changed the trajectory of my life. It was the catalyst to me opening up about my undiagnosed postpartum anxiety, depression, and OCD, processing my own trauma, and realizing that advocacy is my life's work. My colleagues and I all discovered that there is strength in processing trauma and empowerment in sharing stories. So that's what we're here to do. Most importantly, we discovered that we're not alone. Maybe you're already connected to the perinatal mental health world in one way or another. Or maybe you're just looking for ways to support new parents and families. Whatever the case, we are so glad that you tuned in. And who knows, maybe we'll hear from you next. On today's episode, we're chatting with Emily Clark, a 15-year elementary school teacher turned perinatal mental health advocate. Em is the communication manager for the Climb Out of the Darkness program here at PSI. She volunteers also as a climb leader for Team OKC, and if that is not enough, she's helped create impactful legislation change in her home state of Oklahoma. We'll hear how postpartum anxiety and depression after the birth of her twins has helped her unapologetically open up about her experience and fueled her fight to support parents in the perinatal period. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the I Am One podcast are the speaker's own. Tuning into this podcast is not a replacement for therapy or any other form of professional help. Our discussions cover personal stories of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and may feel triggering to some listeners. Your number one priority is to take care of yourself. So if you are in need of help, please reach out to the PSI helpline by calling or texting HELP to 1-800-944-4773 for help in English and in Spanish. At PSI, we want you to know you are not alone, you are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Okay, well, welcome to this episode. This is called the E Squared episode. I've just been informed because I'm the only person who is not named Emily here today. We've got two members of the Climb staff, Emily Clark and Emily Jankowski-Newton, in the house. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. If only I was named Emily. Then we'd have real problems in our office, wouldn't we?
We'd have to start a number scheme or something.
Yeah, you guys already have to have nicknames so we know who we're talking about.
That's true. It's already hard enough.
But we digress as usual.
1 minute in.
Off to a great start. 1 minute in, off to a great start. Emily Clark, could you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are?
Sure. So as Danny said, my name is Emily Clark. My pronouns are she, her, and I am mom to twin girls, fraternal twin girls that are almost 9. They'll be 9 in April. And I live in Oklahoma City.
Awesome.
All right. So,
this is our smooth start to co-hosting. Hit it.
I feel like I should break into song. Okay. So as we do, we talk about how these things have affected our lives. So if you could tell us what impact perinatal mood and anxiety disorders have had on your life, personally, professionally. When did it slide into your DMs?
I was going to say orbit, but I like that.
Well, I am in communication, so slide into the DMs is perfect. So I'm actually going to back up a little bit before my pregnancy, because my husband and I were infertile for over 4 years. And then we actually got pregnant with triplets and lost the triplet at around 8 weeks. So that was a difficult thing during my pregnancy, because I was not really thrilled about being a triplet mom and thought that was a big mistake and that I wouldn't be able to handle it. And then I lost the triplet. And so I felt like, that whole thing, all that guilt. So,
lots of emotions.
Yeah. And the girls, were born at 36 weeks. which is almost full term for twins, which was wonderful. But baby A was only 4 pounds, 1 ounce, and had to go to the NICU for low birth weight. And since I had made it all the way to 36 weeks, I really expected that we've made it through. They're not going to be in the NICU. This is going to be great. And my worst case in my head was kind of like being separated. So baby B and I are there, and baby A was taken off to the NICU. And I also had a C-section, which was planned, but my first spinal tap didn't take. And so I had to have a second one, and that was kind of traumatic and led to a lot of neck pain. So I would say in the hospital, I was there for 4 days, and I actually probably like day 2 or day 3 started struggling within the hospital. And I forgot to mention at the end of my pregnancy, which, we had waited to be pregnant for a really, really long time. But towards the end of my pregnancy, I told my husband I could not do it. So I was already experiencing anxiety pretty severely at the end of my pregnancy, and just didn't really know what to do about it. Thought it was normal. Never been pregnant before, never been pregnant with twins before. I had a lot of just kind of anxiety and depression about even having a C-section and not choosing natural. So there was just kind of a lot going on. But in the hospital, I got really devoted to breastfeeding. And so I would breastfeed baby B and then pump and then supplement with baby B, and they would send my breast milk to baby A. And so I was doing that around the clock every 3 hours and like kind of hyper obsessed. And I ended up, before I went home with only baby B, I ended up having a line play over and over in my head. And it's a good one. Roll that beautiful baked bean footage. Just like random, totally random, stuck in my head. When I went home and I wasn't with baby A, I was only with baby B, I was already super overwhelmed and I couldn't cry, and I'm a crier. So that wasn't a good sign.
Have you ever experienced that before?
No.
Like Cameron Diaz in The Holiday?
Yes. It was exactly like that. Mm-hmm.
It was like, I've got feelings about this, but like, it's not coming out of my eyeballs.
Exactly.
This is so strange.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm recovering from a C-section. I'm overwhelmed about having twins. I'm a first-time parent. And so we ended up, my husband and I went to the hospital for a NICU class, and a nurse saw me and was concerned and said, just pump, stop breastfeeding. You need to get more sleep. So here I was 5 days postpartum and already having difficulty sleeping and starting to have, mental health issues.
I want to ask you a question about this breastfeeding thing, because that was a similar situation that a couple of friends have dealt with over the years. So like if you're pumping and feeding every 3 hours, like what did that 3 hour window actually look like? What was the, how long did it take to do each step?
Yeah, it's a great question. So everything's magnified with twins, and baby B was 5 pounds, 5 ounces. And baby A, as I mentioned, was 5 pounds, 1 ounce. And so, 4 pounds, 1 ounce. And we brought her home at 1 week postpartum. So at that point, it would honestly take 2 hours out of the 3, because you would feed one and then feed the other and then try to calm down enough to sleep. And so it got to be where I tried to sleep during the day, but I couldn't because I had my anxiety going during the day. I was depressed and all I wanted to do was sleep, but I couldn't when I tried. And then at night, I was awake and feeling anxious. And of course, since I was pumping, I was like starving and had a lot of wakefulness. And so over about an 11-day period, I was sleeping less and less and less, to the point where at 11 days postpartum, I had suicidal thoughts, and it really freaked me out. And I ended up calling my parents in the middle of the night and begging them to take me to the ER. And my dad came over in the middle of the night. And so it was like the first crisis point.
Wow. And you said something about it.
And I had already been concerned even in pregnancy about having, PPD possibly. And I had a family member tell me, well, you should be nothing but overjoyed once these children come because you've waited so long for them. So I already have that guilt planted.
Unhelpful.
So basically what ended up happening was I was able to get in to a postpartum therapist and a psychiatrist, and they told me to stay with my parents over the weekend, and I ended up getting worse over that weekend because I was trying to, quote, take breastfeeding off my plate and didn't realize there was going to be another hormonal shift. And so by that Monday morning, I checked myself in to an inpatient facility for 48 hours and was able to get basically stabilized, and I was released back into my parents' care. And so it was a really weird situation because my husband and mother-in-law were taking care of the girls, and my parents were taking care of me, and I, was able to get on the right meds and again, get more stabilized and sleep. And I went over and took care of the girls and spent time with them and tried to gain confidence because I also didn't have any confidence whatsoever about being a mom and being able to feed them and being able to diaper them and put them down. I thought my anxiety was so high and intense. I felt like I was thinking of every moment of every day, the rest of their lives. And little minor issues to me were like end of the world problems. Like church members were bringing food over and there wasn't room in the fridge. And that to me was like the end of the world. And people would try to give me solutions to my problem, and I couldn't receive the solution because my anxiety was so severe.
You just needed somebody to just do the thing, like just figure out in the fridge. Don't ask me questions. How long between when you went to the ER were you able to get in to see, you said, a psychiatrist and or a therapist? Or
Yeah. So basically when I was going downhill, but before I had suicidal thoughts, I reached out to my doctor and he prescribed Zoloft. And I didn't end up taking the Zoloft because a couple family members were concerned about, she's already taken all this pain meds and she's breastfeeding. So taking Zoloft wouldn't be good. So unfortunately, I listened to them and didn't take the Zoloft. And so then by the time it got to the suicidal thoughts, it was really interesting because I had randomly met a postpartum therapist at a baby shower socially while I was pregnant and had already had a conversation with her about, I'm worried about postpartum depression. So I ended up calling and leaving a message with her, and it was her day off, but she came into the office. She saw me. She got me in with the psychiatrist, and that was when they told me to go to my parents for the weekend. But it ended up like I felt like I was getting worse and I wasn't getting better, and I thought that I would get a higher level of care at an inpatient facility. Turns out in the state of Oklahoma, there's not really a great inpatient facility for mothers that are experiencing PMADs. But I mean, I was able to get the right medicine to sleep and to get more stabilized that way and then be released back into my care team. But
at that point, were you, I'm so confused because I'm looking at two Emilys. Sidebar for everybody listening. Because we have two Emilys in our office, we call one of them E and we call the other one M because we can't just say Emily. How confusing is that? So I'm just staring at both of you and calling you the wrong name, M. But I was just curious, at that point, had you probably been diagnosed since you were being prescribed medication? What was your diagnosis, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So the psychiatrist diagnosed me with postpartum anxiety and obsessive compulsive personality trait, which these days they call a disorder, not a trait.
A trait.
And I'm still not clear to this day whether that was like a temporary situation for me or whether that's a long-term disorder. But I feel like my minor anxiety that I had my whole life and didn't know was anxiety basically blew up. And I really feel like I vacillated between postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. So my PPD is undiagnosed, but there were times when I didn't know whether to like go take a walk to get energized or whether I should go take a bath to calm down because I was pinging between extreme low energy and kind of manic situations where I was freaking out about everything and verbalizing, and my thoughts were looping and racing and I was saying all of it to my poor parents, and they were trying, to stay calm and get me help. This was, almost 9 years ago, and I had only heard of PPD. And so that was interesting, but he actually prescribed me, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but he prescribed me with Ambien as well as an anti-anxiety. And I ended up having hallucinations with Ambien, which did not help the situation at all. And that was part of me continuing to spiral and not sleep well and, wake up freaking out and sweaty and basically having anxiety attacks in the middle of the night.
Oof.
Yay. This isn't heavy at all. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Poor postpartum M.
But the thing is, once you get enough away from it, or like you can see that was the dark part of the journey, and that like there's light ahead, that's when you can be like, wow, that was like a lot. Like it's not funny, but like we can laugh at ourselves a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I've had lots of time to process it and make sense of it and kind of see like the suicidal thoughts were like the first low point, and I thought it couldn't get any lower, but then like continuing to spin out and not get sleep for the 48 hours after that and have the hormonal shift from trying to wean made things worse. And, you know, the whole inpatient experience. And I really like put a stigma on myself. And I, you know, was a teacher at the time, and I thought I can't ever tell anyone that I was inpatient. They're going to think I'm crazy. I'm not going to be allowed to teach. And the same family member that told me I should be nothing but overjoyed also told me that I couldn't tell anyone about what I was going through, or I would be fired. And that, you know, when I was actually finally getting better and staying with my parents and going over to visit the girls every day, this person also said that I wasn't getting better. So there was kind of this additional situation going on of I'm already, you know, at my lowest point in my life, and I needed that person to help with my children, but emotionally it wasn't safe for me to even move home until that person was gone.
Oh, wow. What a tricky spot for you to be in. I'm feeling two conflicting emotions just listening to your story. First one, I'm incredibly blown away by the fact that you almost immediately were like, wow, something doesn't feel right, and I'm going to say something to somebody, which this episode is not about me, but I didn't say anything until I got a therapist when my oldest was 8 or 9. I didn't start to process all the things. So I'm always incredibly just blown away by anybody who can just go, this doesn't feel right. This isn't what I thought it was going to be like, and say something. And then at the same time, you're being told by somebody not to say anything about it.
Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah. So.
And we already have that stigma as a society, right? And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm going crazy. If anyone knows, they would take my kids away. Like I'm having all those typical thoughts that a lot of moms going through PMADs have. Yeah.
You're a first time parent. You have your own ideas about what parenthood should look like,
right?
Will look like, you know, and it's feeling different.
Yeah.
So you've talked a little bit about your experience seeking help. You did inpatient. I assume that some people are going to have had an experience, maybe not at the same place. Maybe they don't have an experience having been inpatient. So do you want to talk at all about that, or especially about the transition from inpatient to home? I've supported a lot of friends through that.
So it was really interesting because I felt like everyone in there was very normal. Most people that are inpatient, or at least that I interacted with, have bipolar, and they were just trying to get stabilized. And, you know, there were group therapy sessions, but that wasn't totally helpful for me in my situation. And they were not prepared for a postpartum woman who is only 15 days postpartum, recovering from a C-section, still having trouble walking around. You just post C-section. And I was pumping, and they weren't prepared for any of that. So it kind of was like a fight or flight experience. The second I got in there, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going through this. And I was fighting to get out. So that's why I was only there for 48 hours.
Wow.
However, it was really awesome because the therapist that did my intake, she actually was training to become a postpartum doula. So she was the first one who really like listened to my whole story. Because at the time with my obsessiveness, I wanted to talk about every minute of every day till that point. And I thought that every detail mattered. And I was like hyper obsessed about it. So she listened to the whole thing and said, oh my gosh, you've just had this perfect storm of experiences that have led you to this moment. And she agreed that that was not the best placement for me. And then she worked to help me get back home. But instead of going directly home, I did go back to my parents and stay with them for 2 weeks. So that part is a little bit different. But as I said, it was a little hard to know like how to recover, whether I should, you know, try to calm myself, try to energize myself. But the good news is after the inpatient experience, I was able to go spend time with my girls every day and start to gain more confidence and start to get ready to move home. And then it was really neat because my husband and I were both teaching at the time, and he was done at the end of April because he was teaching at the college level. And so he was able to be on summer break, and basically we had people come in at 9 p.m. and kind of take the 9 to midnight shift. And then he woke up at midnight and had midnight to 8 a.m. with them. And so he was able to get 8 hours, and then I was able to get, 8 hours or more. And so we're for a couple of months, we were on shifts. So eventually, like when I felt more confident, I took, 4 p.m. to midnight. He slept, and then he took midnight to 8 a.m. And so it wasn't great for our marriage, but it was good for us both getting the sleep we needed, because as
Survival
we talked about earlier, with twins, you literally only have 1 hour of existence out of every 3. And so unless you get on some sort of schedule, or take turns with your partner, it's really hard to cope. So we were able to have people from our church and my parents' church come help and do some shifts, which helped a lot. And then, the really cool part looking back is, I had PPA really severely, in my opinion, but I also recovered very quickly. Because coming out of inpatient, I was able to get on the right antidepressant, the right anti-anxiety, and level out. And truly by 6 weeks postpartum, I was myself again.
That was my next question. I was just going to ask, when did you feel like yourself? 6 weeks postpartum. Wow.
It's amazing. And most of my twin mom friends literally don't remember the first year because they didn't sleep for a whole year. And because of the way Danielle and I handled it, and handled those, sleepless nights, taking shifts, I remember things from that first year, which is really a blessing. And, like all of us, we've turned our experience into good for other people and have used it to drive and energize us to help other parents.
Yeah. Well, that is a great segue into the next thing I was thinking about, Em. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you started to get involved in perinatal mental health advocacy? It probably wasn't 6 weeks postpartum.
No.
We don't advise that officially.
Yeah, we do not.
No. Definitely get past the first year.
Come to a climb, we'll give you snacks, but do not.
That's true.
More than that, you've got to pass. If you could just tell us a little bit more about how you became involved in advocacy and
So, like many of us, I wanted to create meaning out of my experience. I even remember the day I checked myself in, I told my husband, I don't understand why I'm going through this. And so a couple years later, I wanted to create meaning out of it. And I thought about other women in Oklahoma, and I read the stats just about American women and parents that they're not getting help, right? They're not being diagnosed. They're not getting help. And so I did a little research and found out several states, including Texas, had some legislation on the books that required screenings for all moms in the perinatal period. And I thought that even though that wasn't my particular issue, I was like, help me, there's something wrong. And I was really, intense about it. But a lot of women and parents don't seek help and don't even know that they're going through a postpartum mental health issue. And so I approached my state senator that I had met a couple times previously just as a teacher. And I presented her with all these other states and the laws that they have and said, I think this is something that we can do to help Oklahomans. And yay, it's free. So we ended up pushing that through. And now there's a law on the books here in Oklahoma that women in their 3rd trimester and then at every single well child checkup the first year will be screened for postpartum depression.
Goodness. Em,
changing the world.
You're so outgoing. That was such a subtle drop. Since I've met my senator a couple times, as you do.
Well, I kind of became an activist as a teacher during the Oklahoma teacher walkout. And so then once you become an activist, it's kind of like this high. You're like, I'm going to change the world. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of put that together. And unfortunately, she was really receptive and got a co-author on the House side. And so it was a really cool experience. Then a couple years later, actually pause. You're going to ask me the question, then I can answer it.
It's okay. Who's running the show here?
I know, sorry.
Emily's being the director. So tell us about how you became involved with PSI.
Sure. So
I'll ask the question.
Sure. I think the first time I heard about Climb Out of the Darkness is somehow I saw a YouTube video, maybe 2016-ish.
I thought you said somehow I saw you too, like the two of you.
Oh,
I'm following.
sadly.
Anyway, sorry.
But it was this awesome video showing women from all over the country climbing out of the darkness and telling their stories and walking together in community. And I thought that is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked on the map and there was not a climb in Oklahoma City. And the nearest one was North Texas. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great, but I don't really want to drive. Like, I guess I'll just start a climb here in Oklahoma City. And then I talked to Emily Jankowski Newton, the other E.
Thank you for clarifying.
The original Emily, yes. And she just helped me feel confident that I could run a climb in Oklahoma City. And that's how I got connected with PSI.
I'm like, have you ever hosted a play date?
Yes. Is this a
I
trick
probably
question?
hadn't, honestly, because I did everything with my Mother of Multiples group at the time. That was my social outlet.
Were you ever like, hey, does anyone want to do this?
Maybe.
Yeah. See? So
You led a really cool climb. I loved looking at your photos from this year. You walked to a lighthouse.
Thank you.
Very on the nose with
People
the light.
almost fainted because it was so hot.
oh god.
So
Dang
we're
it.
really excited about the second climb season being in October so that
Yes.
maybe people, won't be afraid of passing out.
We don't want people fainting.
Only out of excitement.
That's
No,
true.
not even that.
Oh, okay, not that either.
We're going to need to bring a lot of like bean bags or something.
But Danny, I was really excited about the lighthouse too. That was the location I had wanted for years. I had always envisioned it instead of like a candle showing, the way, like lighting our paths out of the darkness. I wanted it to be a lighthouse. And so like all our Team OKC stuff had a lighthouse on it. And I just loved it because it was symbolic. And we walked on summer solstice, the longest, brightest day of the year. And I just like ate up all the symbolism. So it was pretty cool to be there.
Yeah. Why didn't you have it at the lighthouse before? Did you have to reserve?
Yeah, we just didn't reserve the location early enough in the year.
And now you're on it.
Gotta
On
stay on
top
those
of
things.
it.
Yes.
Nice. Can you tell us how else are you involved with PSI these days? Besides being a volunteer climb leader, you are a teacher aren't you a teacher, Em?
I was a teacher for 15 years. And I guess I did such a good job as a climb leader that Emily Jankowski Newton asked me to join the climb team as the communications manager. And so it was a really huge shift from teaching fourth grade for 15 years to being communications manager for Climb Out of the Darkness. But it's pretty awesome because I have amazing coworkers. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have all the channels. We'll put them in the show notes. You should follow us everywhere.
We are attempting to do more channels, to post on more channels.
All of that in the show notes. So you're in OKC.
Yes.
And if anybody is interested in leading a climb and they have social media specific questions, you are the person to ask. So we'll put your email address in the show notes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Maybe also a link to Team OKC's climb page. If anybody in the OKC area is interested in joining, or I don't know what the situation is if you're looking for co-leaders or anything this year. So people can find you. Awesome. Who's smacking their glass?
That was me. Sorry.
Hey, we're recording a podcast here.
We're just glad you're here since you dropped off. Your video dropped off there for a minute.
It did. I was like,
yeah, for
We're
people
all kind of freaking
just
out.
listening in, Em and I continued the podcast, hopefully flawlessly, while Emily Jankowski Newton fell off the face of the earth and then joined the recording again. And now she's back with us.
Thank
I was
goodness.
like, I'm back.
I got very distracted and I was like, oh yeah, we're recording an episode. And I forgot I was trying to be present anyway.
It was a little stressful.
Yeah, this is only our third time.
You're doing great.
Thanks. You too. E, how are you feeling? Everybody okay?
Fine.
Great. Do you want to lead the lightning round, E?
Am I supposed to ask the questions really fast, or can I ask them at a non-lightning speed? What's the protocol?
Whatever you want, because I think that in the last episode with Lisette, I started off fast and then I digressed. And it wasn't so light. Okay. It wasn't so lightning-y at the end, but you go at your own speed.
I listen to a Harry Potter podcast, and they also have a lightning round.
Of course they do.
Maybe we should have a different name for it.
Because it's at the end. Is it the placenta round?
Gross. We're dropping our placentas?
Yeah. It comes after the big interview questions.
I mean, it kind of makes sense.
I don't even know if we have comments, but it sounds really official saying it. Leave us a comment about what we should name the lightning round. Do you vote for placenta round or maybe something else?
Oh my God, it's the postpartum round. Duh.
Oh my gosh. You kind of have to watch this on YouTube and not just listen to it, because this is
Emily,
kind of funny.
This is the thing that I need to make sure we do. We need to just let everybody know that Emily just whacked herself repeatedly in the forehead with her microphone.
Yes. It was soft. She's fine.
Question number 1.
Oh, yes.
Very loud.
Question number 1. What is your favorite podcast? Except for this one, duh, because this is your favorite.
Obviously. Okay, so as a teacher, I did not have time to listen to podcasts, much less breathe or exercise or take care of myself. However, occasionally on road trips back in the day, I would listen to Serial. Oh. So I really like that. The true crime podcasts, I think, are really cool. So I would have to say Serial is my favorite. Plus, I love the host's voice. She has a great voice for podcasts, much like our own Danny Giddens.
Thank you. Right?
She really does.
I'm too scared to have a Serial type podcast, so ours are going to have warm fuzzies instead. Okay.
Danny can't even watch the 4th Harry Potter movie. Just kidding.
Are you kidding? Okay, you're kidding.
I'm
getting shamed.
I think I'm kidding. I don't know if she's watched any of them. I just reread all the books. That's why.
Oh, it's fresh on your mind.
Fan. I like something predictable. What?
You're not a fan of Harry Potter?
Me? Are you spreading lies, E?
Oh, sorry. You're
I like Harry Potter. I don't like. I'm just not a fan of scary, thriller type movies. Mm-hmm. Emily's dancing the thriller.
Uh-oh, we've gone off the rails.
Dance.
Question number 2, Emily Clark.
Yes.
Tell us, do you have a book in your ear or a book in your hands?
So I typically read either, hardback, paperback, or on my Kindle. I don't have a Kindle. I just read it on the Kindle app on my phone. But I like reading when I can focus.
With your eyeballs.
I like reading with my eyeballs. That's what I'm trying to say.
You're an eyeball girl.
That's true.
She's into eyeballs.
And it got weird. Okay.
I literally still call them books on tape instead of audiobooks. So,
oh my God,
yes.
I did that. And my kids were like, what's a tape? And I was like, I quit.
I know. I correct myself. I was telling someone the other day, I was reading this book, an ebook through the library, and I didn't read it fast enough, and it's not available, and I couldn't check it out again. So I'm actually having to finish the book on audiobooks, and I don't even know what to do with myself. It's so strange. I'm not used to it.
Oh God, I love it. I love it. But that's me. And this is not my episode. So,
which we can't wait for yours.
Currently, what are you reading?
I am reading a British mystery, and I love British mysteries, and I love historical fiction with a hint of romance, specifically World War II.
Oh, no. Okay.
Well, I do love Jane Austen. I grew up reading Jane Austen, but I'm talking about World War II historical fiction kind of books.
With love.
With a little bit of love. Always a female main character who's doing war work kind of thing, inspiring. But you kind of learn some stuff
Bletchley
historically.
Park?
Yes, exactly like that.
Have you read War Brides?
No, I'll put it on my list.
I will send you my copy.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, what is your go-to for a quick mental break?
Okay, yoga.
Mm. You've built that in.
I built that in. I'm going twice a week. But for as far as really quick, if I am feeling down in the dumps, then it's just a really hard day. I actually have a playlist on Amazon Music that's called Pick Me Ups. And I put my Pick Me Up playlist on, and that's a big help.
Does the playlist change, or is it like these are like the oldies but goodies? Do you know what I mean? Like, what if something new that's good comes out? Does it get put on, or is this like
it gets put on? Yes, I definitely add to it. Like the other day, I added, I could walk 500 miles and I could walk 5. Yeah, I added that one. So every now and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I dig that song. I'm definitely going to add it to my playlist, and then it helps.
Did you say that that's on iTunes?
No, it's on Amazon Music.
I wonder if you can share a playlist.
I think all the cool people are on Spotify, but I'm on Amazon Music.
Well, listen, if we have consent from you, maybe we'll even drop a link to your, what is it called? Pick Me Up?
Yes,
playlist?
My Pick Me Up list.
We'll drop that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And so
if
anybody's needing a pick me up.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Notes. And because I like to research things, as I was adding to my list the other day, I literally Googled pick me up songs, like what songs are pick me up songs. And there was like a list of 20. So that gave me some ideas for,
nice.
Yeah.
How many of the 20 were already on your list? Or was it like a whole new 20?
It was mostly new, but I had at least 5 already on.
Okay.
Like, hey, ya, hey, ya.
Oh, yeah.
That was already on there. That's a great pick me up.
Yeah.
I just added All Night Long by Lionel Richie because that was like my favorite song growing up. When I was like 6 years old. I love that one.
Huh.
That's all you have to say is, huh?
That's cool.
Awkward.
Nice. Well, I mean, I was just trying to think about like what he's actually singing about. All night long?
I think.
Sleeping all night long?
Now that's hot.
But it could be
sleeping all night long.
Yeah.
Sure. That's super hot.
That is hot. I mean, the other thing is you love sleep, Em. You love some sleep. You sleep like how much?
8 to 10 hours. 8 to 10 hours every night.
Living the dream.
And I usually still need naps, but it's not entirely healthy. I don't think. I think there is such a thing as too much sleep. But I've always loved naps.
You really prioritize it.
I do. And I think it's because part of my mental breakdown was so related to sleep.
Right.
And that was part of my recovery. And that's part of why I recovered so fast is because we were able to prioritize sleep for me. So it might be a little bit of a fear reaction of like, I can't ever get not enough sleep again, or I'm going to go a little bit nuts.
Well, you inspire me. I'm chronically under rested.
And overtired.
Yeah. So you do inspire me in that department. So I don't know if this already covered the last question of the lightning round, which is going very slow for a lightning round. The slowest of the lightning rounds thus far.
You should change it to be 2x speed.
What's one way that you'll show yourself some radical love today, Em?
Okay, so Danny provided me the list of questions ahead of time, and this was the question that stressed me out more than any other.
Oh no, it stressed you out?
It did, because like many women, I have a lot of insecurities, and I'm very hard on myself. And so it was kind of like, oh my gosh, self-love. Like I need to show myself self-love. I'm not showing myself self-love. Guilt. And so, but I thought about it.
That had the opposite effect that it was intended.
Okay. So, but I came up with an answer. My answer is that I actually need to talk more kindly to myself and encourage myself the way I would encourage someone else, and talk to myself the way I would talk to my friend, and just basically show myself self-love, period, is the way to show myself self-love. It's like I'm already talking to myself, so I may as well, turn it positive.
That's a
Can I make
goal.
a suggestion?
Sure.
Can I offer a reflection?
Oh, no, I'm making a suggestion, which means you can fully ignore it and I will not be offended. I have been, ever since New Year's Day, standing in front of the mirror before I get dressed in the mornings, saying, this is a good body, twice, out loud. This is a good body.
Yes.
This is my body. This is a good body. My body is a good body. And then I get dressed.
Yeah.
I think it's working. I don't know.
That's awesome. I think I need to say that about my mind too, and my brain. Like, this is a good brain.
I'm a good person. This is a good brain.
Yeah. I think it would be really powerful. So thank you for that suggestion.
27 days in.
I forgot twice.
That's not bad. It's going very well for a New Year's resolution.
Emily, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's really important to be honest and vulnerable. And I think that's what we all like to do, is to normalize the hard parts, because sometimes it's still hard, you
Absolutely.
know, or it's like you kind of get a little like reminded of when it was hard, and then it's like unsettling a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for having me. And thank you, Danny. And thank you, Emily, for co-hosting.
Thanks for letting me crash, guys.
You're welcome. We love you.
Thanks for tuning in to the I'm One podcast. Check out today's show notes where we'll drop links to all the important things that we mentioned in this episode. Please consider liking, following, and sharing about our show on social media, and subscribing to and rating our show wherever you listen to podcasts. It only takes a minute of your time, and well, you'll help people find this podcast, thus helping our collective mission of bringing resources and local support to folks worldwide. From everyone here at the Climb Team, thanks again for listening.